So who is our authentic self? I get asked that all the time. What does it mean to be authentic? The way I look at authenticity is the closest version to our truest self. Most of us grew up in homes where we were not truly seen for who it is we are. We grew up with parents who were kind of unconscious, and they used us, their children, to represent the best version of themselves. They used us to meet their unfulfilled expectations and to fulfill their unfulfilled fantasies and dreams. So in many ways, we had to abdicate our authenticity, our true selves, in order to fit in, to be approved of, to belong, to find a sense of identity and purpose. So along the way, our truest sense of self kind of fell to the wayside. And then we grow up in our 30s or 40s or 50s longing for a true expression of self, longing to be free from the burden of seeking approval from the outside. And it's hard for people. You know how it is when women especially feel bound and trapped, wanting approval and worth from an external source, not knowing how it is to just be themselves with abandon, with joy, with spontaneity, always trapped with the burden of perfection. And men feel that too, I'm sure. And all of this stems from a childhood where our parents were unable to see us for who it is we are. So my entire approach to parenting is to help parents to best see their child's authentic self. And the only way we can honor our children's authentic self is if we first honor our own. Because when we are in touch with our own sovereign empowerment, our own voice, then we cherish and treasure this in someone else. We know how hard it is to be in our true self. So then when our child is in their true self, we cherish that, we honor that. So this is what my work is about, helping our children preserve their authentic self. And the way to do that is to help the parent step more and more into their authentic self. Surrender is so important, it's almost pivotal on this journey toward wholeness. And the reason for that is surrender includes within its doing, even though you can't do surrender, you have to be surrender, you have to become surrender. But inherent in the doing of surrender is the acceptance of the as-isness of our life, right? If we don't accept our life as it is, understanding unequivocally that there are lessons of growth in the as-is, even if it's unpleasant, even if it's painful, if we unequivocally accept that this moment before me right now, however torturous, is here for my growth, then I'm more willing to surrender. The moment I surrender, I open myself up to those lessons. And when I open myself up to lessons of growth, of transformation, right there, I am on the path toward greater integration and wholeness. So there are so many culturally enforced stereotypes about how to be a good parent and how to raise a good child that these stereotypes actually get in the way of good parenting. They actually impede the parent's ability to deeply connect with our children. So let's take the most common myth that we need to be raising a kind of product, a successful child, a child who's ahead of the curve. Parents are instilled with this cultural stereotype and they feel pressure to do that. The minute we ingest this cultural stereotype, and in my book I lay out several myths of parenting, out of which one is raising a successful child, then the parent feels like they need to push and pressure and be stressed toward reaching this outcome of raising a successful child when we don't even really know what success truly means. We just keep pushing our child, and when our children resist us, we panic. We get afraid because we believe one of the uber tasks of parenting is to raise this child. So ingesting these cultural myths without being aware of why they're in place and what they really mean for us as a human being gets in the way of truly conscious parenting. And one of the other myths is raising a happy child. So does this mean that every time our children cry, we are failing as a parent? Well, many of us parents feel that way. So we want to fix our children. We want to control them. Well, this gets in the way of our children's evolution. So we have to stop, take a moment, recognize what are the prevalent belief systems that we are just blindly ingesting and deconstruct them. And my book, The Awaken Family, my latest book, helps parents to do this so that they can then enforce their parenting with actually the closest connection rather than rigid anxiety. Vulnerability is the direct pathway to empathy. We all want to be effective with our children, with our colleagues at business, but we don't understand that if we don't connect at the human level and make that absolute one-on-one, heart-to-heart connection, yeah, we'll be effective, but not in the long run. We want to create long-lasting, deep relationships in our communities. In order to do that, we need to expose ourselves. We need to expose our humanity. In order to do that, we have to be in touch with our deepest feelings, with our vulnerability. And the minute we do, and this doesn't mean, bursting at the seams with our emotionality, it just means to be connected at the human level and seek that connection in every transaction, in every relationship. And when you go for the heart, you create that deep, long-lasting relationship that lasts and has mileage forever. So every relationship is here and attracted by us to awaken us to our greater wholeness. A conscious marriage or an unconscious marriage, a conscious child or an unconscious child, a conscious friendship or an unconscious friendship. Every relationship, every intimate relationship especially, is attracted by us in order for us to grow. Now, this is something you just have to either believe in or not believe in. It behooves us to believe that relationships are attracted by us, because then it creates a sense of agency. Oh, how am I attracting this moment in time to me? Why is this partner being attracted by me? What do I have to learn from this? Versus just presuming things happen to us and then we feel victimized by it and then resentful of the other person, then we want to control and change the other person. Instead, ask yourself, why did I choose this partner? Why is this partner in my life? And how can I learn from my partner? And then maybe the relationship can expire, but only after we have learned the lessons that this relationship has brought forth for us. This is what we're doing all the time. We're creating lessons for growth. So can we look at the relationship as something that's bringing growth versus just looking at it to control and change the other person? So my journey into present moment awareness began in my early 20s. And I think, like all journeys, it starts with some sort of tipping point or some sort of trigger. And I think my trigger was I had just left my country of origin, India, just moved to America, and things kind of combusted within me. My old belief systems weren't working in my new environment. So it caused me to re-examine my belief systems. And I believe life events cause us to do that, and instead of resisting shocking and traumatic life events, we need to embrace them, because those are the ones that combust us from within and ask us to reshuffle, realign, repurpose, and relook at everything we've believed in so far. So I went through an entire combustion process in my early 20s, which caused me to then look for answers. And hopefully, answers are those that take us deeper within ourselves. Sometimes we look for the wrong answers, answers which take us outside of ourselves. We get into unhealthy relationships, we get into addictions, we kind of fall off the grid, and that's okay. Some people just need to do that, and then eventually they will find themselves too. But let's short circuit that, right, and go deep into ourselves right away. And that's what I began to do. I began questing for what it was that I truly believed in. Who was I? And inevitably, the question, who am I, leads to a deep soul searching. And meditation then comes up as one of the greatest tools out there to go deeper within the self. And I began to meditate and began doing that for my entire 20s and began the process of awakening. I believe that when we enter the now, when we enter the present moment, when we meditate, when we go deeper within ourselves, our relationship with this thing called life changes. We no longer look at it as separate from us. We no longer look at it as happening to us. We look at it as happening for us. We look at it as something that we are co-creating moment by moment. So there are deep benefits to the practice of entering the present moment through mindfulness, through meditation, through deep stillness. There is no other way to access the present moment except by entering it. And meditation is the direct path for entering the present moment. So I believe that fear really undergirds everything. It's the foundation, unfortunately, of our life, certainly of parenting, certainly of many decisions we make in life. And unless we are in touch with our fear and recognize it and even embrace it, not run away from it, then it becomes consciousness. Then it becomes the fuel for deeper compassion, for empathy, for courage. But most of us are disconnected to the fact that fear is even at the foundation of our life. And if we keep remaining disconnected to the feeling of fear, then we will run away from it, and then we will mask it, and then we'll be terrified of it, and then it will actually rule the roost. It is only by befriending fear that it can be used as the greatest source of transformation. So I think every woman especially confronts the question, how do I balance all the things I desire? I want a career, I want to be a mom, I want to be a good spouse and a partner, I want to be a great friend, I want to work out. How do I do all of this? And people ask me, is there such a thing called balance? And I truly believe that there isn't. I don't believe we should seek balance, because in the seeking of balance is an illusion that there is some sort of perfect, way to be. What I prefer to do in my life is to be deeply in touch with who I am in the morning and how I want to manifest my day. Now, I happen to have choice in how that manifests itself. Many people don't have an external choice. They have to go to work. They have to catch the train. They have to get to a meeting on time. But then I say to those people, those individuals, okay, you may not have an external choice, but let's look at how you want to emotionally live out your day to day. Can you be deeply in touch with yourself at the emotional level? When we are more and more in alignment with who we are on the feeling level and not run away from our feelings and our fears, then slowly the external begins to manifest and reflect the internal. It is when we are disconnected on the internal level that our life on the outside is chaotic, stressful, conflictual, and we don't know why. Well, the reason is because we're not connected on the internal level. So no matter what your external choices are for today, I ask parents, be connected emotionally and live in alignment on the emotional level. And very surely and perhaps slowly or perhaps quickly, the external will begin to align itself with the internal. We've all been so culturally indoctrinated to rush and do 1,000 things in the day and achieve and strive. And somewhere there's a belief system that life is supposed to be this hard mountain to climb, and then there's a pinnacle on the top. But life isn't like that, It's not about climbing and striving, and then we get to the pinnacle only to realize, oh, this pinnacle is at the base of another mountain. And we can run the rat race and go through all the hoops in life. Eventually we will come to the realization that life isn't about doing, that life is about a deep experience in the present moment. Now, it could take an illness to get us there. It could take a tragedy, a hurricane, a tornado. And that's why I say our children, they are the biggest teachers of this. So parenting is one of the biggest and most spacious portals to enter the present moment. Our children make us realize, stop, pause. I don't need you to be a fancy mom. I don't need you to have a career. I don't need $1 million. I need you to enter the present moment and deeply connect in my being state. And don't teach me to become a machine, because who said that is the path to happiness? So our children or some turn of events will stop us in our path and teach us how to connect. This is the goal of life, to be present in our present moment experience and to be truly joyful and connected. If we don't have this, then what good is all the doing for? I think one of the ways to be smart about how we live this life is really to get early on, the earlier the better, that there is this inner life within each one of us that is going to demand wholeness. It's going to demand to be seen and heard. So we can run away from our inner wisdom, our inner voice, our inner sovereignty. We can pretend, we can fake it, we can make it for somebody else, we can desire approval and worth from the outside. But eventually we're going to come to the realization that if we are not manifesting our truest, authentic inner self, then life is going to force us to do it. We are going to collide with our inauthentic self and realize that that is going to have to be shed. It's called the ego. It's going to have to be moved to the wayside. Our fear is going to have to be confronted and befriended and crumbled in order for us to rise in our truest sense of empowerment.